Where do we even begin?
Well, I think the biggest thing on everyone's mind is obviously the new administration
Oh, yeah.
and how the economic policies are going to play out.
Yeah, so Trump back in office.
Exactly.
And, from what we see in the headlines, it looks like he's going back to his old playbook a little
It
bit.
seems that way, yeah.
Tax cuts.
Tariffs, yeah, the two big ones, right?
hmm So what do we think? Like, what's the potential fallout?
Well, so let's start with the tax cuts.
Okay.
I mean, the idea there is obviously to stimulate the economy. You put more money back in the hands of businesses, consumers.
Yeah.
Theory is that, they spend more, it boosts growth.
Right.
Now, of course, the critics are saying
Yeah.
that it's just going to widen the gap between the rich and the poor.
Yeah.
And, potentially balloon the deficit.
Yeah, it's kind of that classic debate, right? Like trickle-down economics versus, widening the wealth gap.
Right.
So
right.
we'll see how that plays out. But then you mentioned tariffs.
Yeah, tariffs. Those are a bit more complicated. I mean, essentially, it's like a tax on imported goods designed to protect domestic industries from foreign competition.
So help American businesses.
Yeah, make American goods more competitive.
Right.
But it really depends on which goods are targeted, how big these tariffs are, and then how other countries respond.
Oh, so like if China comes back and puts tariffs on our stuff.
Yeah, you could get into a trade war, and then that could lead to prices going up for consumers.
On all sorts of things.
On everything. I mean, everything from electronics to groceries, potentially.
Oh, wow. So my iPhone and my avocados are more expensive.
Could be.
Well, on that cheery note.
Yeah.
But I guess step back a little bit.
Yeah.
What does all of this mean for investors? Like, what do you...
Well, I mean, there's definitely a lot of uncertainty right now.
Yeah.
Which, markets don't love uncertainty.
Right.
But that said, there are also opportunities.
Okay.
For instance, Goldman Sachs is seeing a lot of their clients moving away from the power sector and into materials. So that suggests that people are anticipating maybe a shift in energy policy, maybe an infrastructure boom under Trump.
Interesting. So some sectors might do well.
Yeah, there are definitely winners and losers in this.
Yeah, but it sounds like a lot of wait and see right now.
It is. And I think, beyond just the immediate market reactions, investors need to be thinking about the long term. Like, how are these tax cuts going to impact the national debt?
Right.
Are these tariffs actually going to revitalize American manufacturing?
Yeah.
Or are they just going to lead to higher prices for consumers?
Okay.
So a lot of dominoes to watch.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, let's move on from the domestic side of things to the global stage. Things like the U.S.-China relationship.
Always complicated.
Yeah, the situation in Ukraine.
Right.
What are we seeing there?
Well, the U.S.-China relationship, it remains complex. There's definitely potential for tension there, especially given the trade war a few years back. As for Ukraine, some people are saying that Trump might try to leverage his relationship with Putin to broker some kind of peace deal.
So another wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, it's too early to say how he's really going to approach these geopolitical challenges.
Right, but certainly high stakes.
Very high stakes.
Yeah. And speaking of high stakes, we can't ignore what's going on in Europe right now.
Oh, absolutely not. Europe is a mess.
Yeah, Germany's like right on the edge of recession.
Yeah, they're really struggling. And then you've got the European Central Bank kind of going in a totally different direction than the Fed here.
Right. So the Fed is like raising interest rates, trying to fight inflation.
Yeah.
And Europe's considering lowering them.
Potentially, to try and stimulate growth.
So it's like the U.S. is tapping the brakes.
Yeah.
And Europe's stepping on the gas.
Yeah, it's a pretty stark contrast.
So what does that mean for the global economy?
Well, it could create volatility in currency markets. It could impact global trade flows. And for investors, I think it really underscores the importance of diversification.
Right.
Really understanding the risks and opportunities in different regions.
Got it. Diversified. Okay. So we've talked about, presidents and markets and geopolitics and even recessions. What about like the average person on the street? How are people reacting to all of this?
Well, Despite all the uncertainty, people still love a good deal.
Okay. They still want to buy stuff.
Yeah, Black Friday's coming up. Yeah. And retailers are already rolling out the promotions.
That's kind of reassuring in a weird way.
It is a little bit of normalcy.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
If we had to, like, boil it all down to one key takeaway for our listeners.
I would say the biggest thing is interconnectedness.
Okay.
Everything we've talked about, whether it's economic policy here in the U.S. or what's happening in Ukraine, it's all connected. And understanding those connections is how you make sense of the world.
Yeah. So to our listeners out there, as you go about your day today, think about how these global shifts might actually impact your life, your job, your investments, even your shopping decisions. Because as we've seen, what happens on the other side of the world can have ripple effects that touch all of us.
Absolutely. And remember, knowledge is power. Stay informed, stay engaged, and you'll be better equipped to navigate the uncertainties ahead.
Wise words.
Until next time, keep diving deeper.